Hello, my friends. Hope you're doing great. That you started the year with energy and with good things in your life. The topic today is nothing too personal because I figured if you want to hear that, maybe there's a better channel for it. But it's a topic that I like a lot, a framework that I like a lot to think about maturity and how to handle other people and how to see yourself as an individual and your maturity, the maturity in your life. I noticed, or I mean, I have noticed for a while, but I'm sure you have noticed as well, that the fact that people are grown up, like physically grown up, usually doesn't translate to maturity, to mental maturity, to emotional maturity. That's because they don't actually correlate. You can be a mature person when you grow up because a lot of our experience growing up is what shapes us and gives us that maturity, but you don't have to. And especially in our world today where we're like really protected from our family, from danger, from difficulty, that's when we tend not to mature. We stay children. And the framework that I bring you today is the three childs. And the three childs says that we all have that we all have three children in ourselves: the physical one, the mental one, and the spiritual one. And these three children have different timelines in their development, and they need different things. So the first one, the physical child, is your body, your physical being. And this child is going to grow up no matter what. You will grow up as time passes by, as your hormones start working on you, and you will develop, go from a baby to a grown up person. You cannot stop it. It's non-stoppable, and it's going to happen either you like it or not. You don't have to do much for it to happen. Actually, you don't have to do nothing. This is what we see, what people can see from you, and they expect that if you are a grown-up body or a grown-up person, then that you will have certain level of maturity in your head as well. But our mental maturity has a different timeline because it's not time actually what makes us mature as individuals mentally, but is our experiences, our exposure to certain experiences, to certain challenges, and having certain realizations about ourselves and about the world we live in. So we start all as babies, innocent. A newborn cannot differentiate himself from the world. And the first step in creating that identity, that maturity, is when a baby sees itself for the first time in the mirror and realizes, okay, I am this separate entity from everyone else. Like I am. It's just the first realization. Then the child starts to develop, starts to figure out that his hunger is not the hunger of the world, for example, but it's only his hunger. So how he's feeling is only that person, only he's experiencing that. Then there is a discovering of rules, the rules from our family, from our parents, the rules we live in. We then try to challenge those rules. We try to challenge that in adolescence usually. That's why adolescents are so conflictive because they try to push the boundaries to figure out where are the boundaries of the rules imposed to me. At some point, people move out, go out, and they figure out that the rules of society, which is a bigger parent, applies to them. And that's usually where people stop. Even before, like I'm sure you've met someone that's still an infant in their heads. They'll still think that their hunger is the hunger of the world. But usually that's where most people stop. When you get out of the rules from your parents because you challenge them, you go into the world and you get a totally new set of rules for yourself. You try to live by. So the society tells you, hey, get a degree, get a house, marry, have children, and you try to live up to those rules. That's where most people stop. Then there are other levels. For example, emotional maturity, where I can realize that my emotions are my responsibility. That is a pretty mature state. That's being like a real grown up, recognizing that how you feel has more to do with yourself than with what's happening outside. But most people don't get there. Only if you get lucky, you will get a crisis. And a crisis is very powerful because a crisis will shake your world and turn it upside down and burn a lot of things. And then you will have to stop and question what is happening with the rules? What is happening with my life? What is important? What is actually real for me? What is actually valuable? And you start to reflect upon yourself and you start growing from that point on. Crises are like great opportunities for growth and to mature. Like we as humans mature by getting hit in the face. That's the best way to grow up. Like if you were young, like myself, if you were young and your parents separated and you had to grow up from that moment, you take responsibility. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion on why that's not ideal for children, but in the end, at some point, you need to assume responsibility. You need to assume your role in this world, and crisis. They moved you through that, like separations, like people dying, like people around you dying or leaving, a heartbreak, a business issue. Crisis tests you, test your thinking, and make you mature. This is the maturing or the growing up from your mental child. And the spiritual child, his timeline is really interesting because the spiritual child requires several lifetimes to actually mature. And that's because the spiritual child only learns from that what's the mental child has verified. So when we make experiences in this world, we're learning things that are valuable. We're learning truths, hopefully. And these truths, this understanding of how the world works and what is our role here, and um, everything that's valuable and true, that's what the spiritual child actually takes for itself. And it requires many lifetimes to actually mature the spiritual child. Sometimes it happens that when the spiritual child is really mature, it shines through the 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 other childs. So you see these kids that are providing a lot of insight with like 4 years old, and they come up with like really interesting takes on things, and they they feel like as if they were way older than they are. And that sometimes that spiritual child shining through with wisdom that we cannot explain on a 4 year old. And the spiritual child grows until it becomes fully mature. And full maturity in the spiritual child, you can call it whatever you want. I call it the father. And the father is like the all knowing figure that we attribute to the highest point in maybe evolution, let's call it. And you can call it God, you can call it the universe. I I am a firm believer that, and this is a belief because it's hard to verify right now, is that we as souls go through all the experience, all the process, just to go back to the Father, to being the Father, to having all the information, all the experiences. And at that point, then we are ready to have children. When you look at maturity and growth and your life through this lens, then it's easier to lower your expectations on people because, for one, when they are grown up, you don't assume that they are mature. Second, you can look into yourself and you can check, okay, I am am I really mature in my life and I'm mature, am I growing? Or is it just that I grew up, my body grew up, but I'm still a child inside? And I think the framework also gives you like a beautiful perspective on all these experiences and the purpose of these experiences in our lives and why we have them, how we can make the most of them, and thinking always that we are growing as individuals with everything that happens to us, crises and good times. So that's the message for today. If you have any questions or if you have another perspective, do let me know in the comments. I'm really happy to answer questions, to get to know you if you're interested. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.